Oh. Uh, my colleague Amy Heller is here with us from International College Counselors, and I'm Debra Barnett Santostefano. I use both names because I've worked professionally with both names, but my clients call me Debra, so that makes it easy. I'm located in California, in San Diego, and we put together, International College Counselors put together this webinar because we find increasing interest in the California schools and wanted to provide both our clients and our hopefully future clients with some additional information. So, what I'm going to do is talk I probably for about 45 minutes and hopefully leave some time for questions. If you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A portion of the Zoom, and Amy will get to them at the end if we're able to. If not, you will have my email address and be able to email me questions as well. So we'll get your questions answered. So, just to tell you a little bit about International College Counselors, we help students from all over the world. So, welcome from wherever you are. And really do everything related to educational planning and admission. So, we do college and graduate school planning and guidance. We help with college school list selection, extracurricular and academic interest refinement, essay editing, application review, and one of the things that's really highly relevant, and you'll see this in the UC system in particular, is staying on top of changes in admissions and keeping families informed of that. Also, making sure that all of the rules are followed at for each application, and recognizing that they're quite different at every college. So we are here to help with all of that. We're a great team located across the United States, and we look forward to learning more about your children if you're interested in utilizing us in the future. A little bit more about me. Um, Again, Debra Barnett Santostefano. I've been with ICC for 3 years. Prior to that, I was the director of college advising at Winter Preparatory School in Orlando, Florida, for almost 20 years, and spent a lot of time. So those of you sort of know that role as either a school counselor or a guidance counselor or a college counselor. I did that in a school environment, which is really relevant in terms of my role here as an independent counselor for students, because I know how schools work and I'm familiar with a lot of different high schools. I actually worked at a boarding school, so we had a lot of international students, and we had a lot of students student admissions from a lot of different high schools. So I'm very familiar with different school systems, and recognize that they're all different. So they require some really pretty specific attention on your part as you're preparing to apply to college. I know there's some students here and some parents here. Typically, I'll speak to the students directly, but parents, of course, if I say you, I'm talking about your student. Prior to working at Windermere Prep, I worked at Providence College as the Associate Director of Career Services and Internship Programs. I am from the Northeast originally, so also very familiar with that area. And I have degrees from USC, Boston College, and Northeastern. So I like education. I also have raised 3 young men and supported them through the college application process, and I understand what a roller coaster ride that is as a parent as well. So I am here to support parents in that regard as well. So speaking of the UC system, that's the University of California system. There are 9 member universities within the University of California. So you've probably heard of UCLA, you probably heard of UC Berkeley. You may have also heard of UC San Diego, UC Santa Barbara, UC Davis, Irvine, Riverside, Santa Cruz, and Merced. That's all of them. So it's a great system with some really great in-state benefits for those of you who are California residents. Each school is pretty different, but there is one application to apply to all of these schools. So that can make it a little bit tricky. It's really one of my goals today is to tell you a little bit more about each university, and it's really going to be just a little, but just to familiarize yourself with the system. You may notice there's not some schools on here like San Diego State. That is in a different system. That's a California State University system. So these are the schools on the California map, which can help, for me, I'm pretty visual, so it helps me see how they are kind of clustered around Florida. Um, a lot of these schools are quite competitive. Some of them have admission rates of 10% or below. That would be UCLA and Berkeley, definitely. But one of the nice things for California residents is 70% of in-state applicants are accepted to at least one UC. So one of the things that we'll do as a college advisor is make sure that our students are strategic when they apply. So with the 10% acceptance rate or below, UCLA was 7% last year, I believe. Uh, we want to make sure that we do everything we can to help you get into UCLA, but we also make sure that you have other options. One of the analogies I use when I talk about a 7% admit rate is if there were a 7% chance of rain, would you bring an umbrella? So most people would say no to that. So that helps you kind of frame the likeliness and how challenging it is to be accepted to some of these schools. Again, we're here to help with that and strategize, do everything we can to help make that happen. But also make sure that all of our students have choices and great fit opportunities. So here's a little more about each of the schools. UC Berkeley, which is more, it's actually Central California, sort of, but everyone calls it Northern California. 33,000 undergrads. Most of these schools are around 30,000 students. They're pretty big. Uh, the 2024 admission rate was 11%. One of the things I added to the slide here was just to give you perspective of how we might be able to help. The ICC admit rate was closer to 30%. So it's a pretty big difference. You can see that working with an independent counselor can really provide some definite strategic benefits in terms of making sure that we are doing everything to capitalize on all of your opportunities, strengths, and provide the best opportunities for admission. You can see the average weighted GPA. I'll talk more about the UC GPA later on in this session, and then the common, very most popular majors. When I say top 4 majors, it's the most popular. You're going to see a theme here. Computer science is extraordinarily popular, and right now, as is business administration, as is engineering. You'll see probably computer science, business administration, and engineering at all of these schools as being among the most popular. UC Davis, that's the agricultural haven, very pretty. A lot of students who are interested in more environmental type of green living tend to be very attracted to UC Davis. Their admission rate is there at 42%. ICC's was 68% in 2025. So the first number I'm giving you is for 2024 admission from the college, but then ours is actually this last year, what our admission rate was from ICC. Not all of the schools had published their 2025 admissions rates, so I just went with 2024. It gets harder every year, sadly. All right, UC Irvine. It's Southern California, but some people think of it as being more in the middle because it's north of San Diego, it's south of LA. The people think of LA sort of as in the middle, but it isn't. That's a 28% admissions rate. It's getting much more competitive. They're very innovative. They're in an area that has a lot of research and lots of opportunities for students in terms of internships and industry. Really, really a lot of opportunity there. And as you can see, their top majors are biological sciences, computer science, business, and social sciences. So I'm going to talk about how you can be strategic with your major too, in terms of increasing your opportunities for admission while still being true to your actual interests and narrative that will help you develop. UCSB, that is the coastal retreat for sure in Santa Barbara. It's very beachy. They have a lot of psychology, brain science, and economics, environmental studies, beautiful campus. Fewer students there, 23,000. UCSD is called the Beach Paradise. It's quite close to the beach. UCSD has some specifics about it. They have a very specific residential housing system, and that's something that is a little bit confusing to people. They're the only school that has that. One of the things that can be a little challenging about applying to the UCs is there are a lot of similarities, but there are also quite a few differences, and there's one application. So we want to make sure that there's the proper amount of research is done so that as you're applying to however many of the schools you're applying to, you have done the research. You do specify a specific major at each school, so within the application, there's a subset of that, but other than that, and the residential system at UCSD, it's really the same information. And then the final three, these have pretty high admission rate. UC Riverside, uh, again, very high research area, lots of research opportunities, quite close to LA there as well. UC Santa Cruz, that's a very in the woods school. It's beautiful, great for students who, again, like a lot of green space. And then UC Merced is the newest UC, and that's really just growing right now. You can see only about 8,000 students there, and most of them are from California. You may have also heard of UCSF, University of California, San Francisco. That does exist, but only for graduate school, which we also help with, but not talking about today. All right, so in terms of the application process, within the UCs, there's a couple of things to consider. They have an A to G course and GPA requirements. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. They have personal insight questions, which are essentially essays, short essays. And they have an activity section and specific deadlines and instructions that are required to follow. So going through each of those, the A to G system is a alphabetical system that is assigned to coursework within public high schools in California and matched to the public colleges in California. So what they're looking for at the UCs is a certain number and all colleges are looking for this. They're looking for a certain number of credits in English and math and social studies and science and maybe in art. And what they do is instead of saying history or social science, they call it area A. They, with it for the A category, which is social science, the UCs require 2 years of history and social science. That's one of those things that I think two years is kind of light for many schools, so for many colleges. So we tend to recommend 4 years, depending on what the student's goal is. But all that's required for the UCs is 2 years, and within those 2 years, you must have a year of U.S. history or one semester of U.S. history or American government, and then 1 year of world or European history, cultures, or geography. So that type of information is really important to know early in your high school planning, because if you live in a non-California state and you're thinking, oh, I'd really love to go to one of these UC schools for college, you need to make sure that you're planning your curriculum in high school in a manner that will enable you to take these classes that are required to meet the A to G system. So this, I'm only giving you one example here, the A area, but it goes up to G, so there's a lot of other examples, and we can help with that. It also, the UC system does have a guide with all of this information. It is about 83 pages long, so it's quite detailed. And they do have a lot of resources on their website, but it's quite significant and thorough. So sometimes it can really be overwhelming. And so we're here to help with decreasing the overwhelming factor. That's a big part of what we do for sure. And one of the things I do sometimes is ask my students and parents who I work with to tell me what they're worried about, right? Like this is college planning. There's kind of some things to worry about. This is kind of big stakes. It's a lot of time commitment, both to applying and then later spending 4 years of your life for undergraduate. And so I asked them to tell me what they're worried about. And then I also tell them whether I'm worried about that or not. So there's a lot of things that you're worried about that I'm not worried about. I can take that worry off of you and tell you that's not something you really need to worry about. We've got that part will be covered. I'll take care of it. So that can be really nice to have a partner in this process who can take some of that worry away. And it makes sense. This is a challenging process. It makes sense that students don't necessarily know what to do or what it is, despite the 83 pages of instructions for one group of colleges. Okay, so the other thing that the UC system has are GPA minimums. The GPA minimum requirement for out-of-state students is a 3.4, and that's only counting courses within the A to G category. If you've taken more than the required number of courses within an A to G category, there are some opportunities to potentially have your GPA calculated just based on the best grades, but it's competitive. And a 3.4 is the minimum, but certainly not the average. You saw the GPA data that I shared earlier for each school. It's significantly higher than 3.4. So one of the things that you hopefully will I want you to take away from this webinar is that there's nothing more important than GPA grades and course rigor. So taking rigorous courses, challenging yourself, and getting good grades is the most important thing to enhance your opportunity in the college application process. For in-state students, the GPA minimum is 3.0 for all A to G courses. So again, these are minimum. Acceptance rates are higher for most campuses. There's only one application deadline for the UC, so a lot of times I think, by now, if you're thinking about college or the college application process, you recognize terms like early action or early decision or regular decision or a priority application. And those all represent different deadlines, and different schools have different policies. The policy at the UCs is that they have one application deadline. It's typically November 30th, right? And so far, the UC application has not opened yet for next year. It will open August 1st when the Common App opens. And then at that point, we'll know, is it actually November 30th or is it December 1st or December 2nd? It'll be around November 30th. And even though the application opens August 1st, students can't submit their applications until October 1st, and then anytime until the deadline. UC decisions come out between in the month of March typically, and vary by campus in terms of when the decisions are made, or when the decisions are shared, I should say. The other thing beyond course rigor and grades, which remember I said is the most important thing, is also activities. The UC application has 20 spots for activities and awards. That's a little bit different than the Common App. The Common App only has 10 spots for activities, and then they have 5 spots for awards or honors. Within those 20 spots, the UC breaks it up into different categories and asks you to enter your awards and honors, educational enrichment programs. So that would be like if you've participated in a summer program at a particular campus, that would be something that you would add to this activities section. Also, any extracurricular activities, whether in school or out of school. They also have you add other coursework that doesn't fall into the A to G category, but is relevant to your application. So that's something that we can help you with, if you get to that point. That's the type of thing that is like, well, what does that mean? And what counts and what doesn't count? So we can help with that with regard to what to enter and what not to enter. And if you have more than 20, what 20 should we pick? And if you have fewer than 20, is that a crisis? And I can tell you the answer to that is no. But you do want to have a robust list of meaningful activities. And I mentioned that specifically with regard to volunteering and community service. You want to make sure that when you're talking about community service, you can talk about your impact and your outcomes. And that's what colleges are looking for versus number of hours. They're much more number of hours and in terms of commitment is important. And in many areas, you have to have a minimum number of hours for high school. But some high schools also allow you to get hours by like working at the school store or working at the school camp. Unless you're at an underprivileged high school, those really aren't the types of service hours that colleges are looking for. Doesn't mean don't do it. It just means do that and other things that where you can show a commitment to service as it represents helping organizations or people in need. And then work experience. They want to know about your jobs, and that's a big one that can really help with college applications. And it doesn't have to be a job like an internship. It can be a job like bagging groceries, working as a hostess or a host at a restaurant. So it doesn't have to be something big and fancy. What they want to see is you're being productive, you're being enterprising, and you're learning skills out in the world. And because that's going to make you a more productive college student. Okay, so I told you we would talk about major a little bit. So, and I also told you that the UCs have a lot of resources, the UC system, for helping with this process. There's something called the UC dashboard that shares admissions data by major at each university. This is pretty key because it will tell you specifically how competitive, for example, computer science is at UC Davis versus at UCLA. Or if you're looking for, and you're trying to decide, oh, should I major in psychology or sociology? I'm not sure. I kind of like them both. And you can see, well, sociology has a much higher admit rate. That's where we might look to be more strategic. You may have heard, and if you live in California, you certainly have heard about impacted majors. Impacted majors are majors that aren't accepting new students because they already have too many. This happens quite a bit in California, unfortunately, with the popular subject areas because there are a lot of transfer students in the system. There are a lot of junior colleges, which are called community colleges in some areas, but in California, they're typically called junior colleges. And students transfer within the California system from a junior college to one of these UCs, and they tend to have priority because they're juniors and seniors, and sometimes the courses that are most popular and subject areas can become what's called impacted, which is the same thing as full. This is now full, so you have to choose something else right now. That's also something we can help with. It's also very important to do this research ahead of time, looking at campuses via campus visits, either in person or virtually. That's a really strategic tip I can give you. So be sure to do your homework or hire an expert to help. Do your homework. Some examples of competitive majors, just to give you some examples of what I'm speaking about. Nursing at UCLA and UC Irvine has a 1% admit rate. Nursing is an extraordinarily competitive major across the United States. 118 students were admitted from 12,000 applicants at UCI last year. That's not very many. Computer science at UCLA is a 3% admit rate. Overall, their admit rate's about 7%. So you can see if you were applying in the arts and humanities, you have more of a chance, like an 8 to 10% admissions rate. Now, that doesn't mean that you should say, oh, well, I'm not going to say that I'm majoring in computer science and then I'm going to go and just change my major. First of all, that won't work for a very competitive major, because transferring in will be extraordinarily challenging. Also, probably your background or narrative, if you're interested in computer science, is going to include activities around computer science and hopefully additional coursework around computer science. So the believability factor, if you say you're going to major in theology or humanities, the believability factor is pretty low. What it does mean is if you are applying to computer science, that in addition to applying to UCLA, you look at some of the other campuses that have a little more accessible computer science admit rates. And the schools do have undecided as an option. Sometimes you're able to go in undecided and then apply into a major later. Again, really depends on the school and depends on the major. UC Davis is a great computer science example. They have a 19% acceptance rate there for computer science versus the campus average of 42%. So quite a big difference. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of water. All right. So now the PIQs, personal insight questions, these are the essays. The goal of these essays is to get to know the student beyond the activities, beyond the grades and the coursework. And it's the student's opportunity to tell their story, share a little bit more breadth and a little bit more depth. There are 8 prompts that students can choose from. They must respond to 4 of the 8 questions. They're all weighted equally. It doesn't matter which ones you respond to, but this is a perfect example of where some strategy can come into play, and we can certainly help you with that and help you tell your story more effectively based on what some of the questions are and how you can best represent yourself. They're each 350 words, so shorter than the Common App essay, which is 650, and that's the max. And here's a nice little tip. You can use your Common App essay for part of your California PIQs because they're not going to see your Common App essay. So most students, unless you're from California and only applying to the UCs and the CSUs, which is also perfectly fine, in that case, you don't need to do the Common App. But if you are doing the Common App is one application for many different colleges and universities. most of those schools require one essay. That the California schools won't see that, so you can use that in some of your PIQ answers if you want to, if it makes sense to. Couple of things about these PIQs. You, particularly with the Common App, because it's a little bit longer, there's a lot of advice, and I don't disagree with it, around making sure that your story is well written, it's interesting to read, it has a lot of context provided. And for the PIQs, it's a little bit different. For the PIQs, you really just want to get right to the point. You don't need to spend time setting up your story with imagery or clever writing. They really, don't care that the clock was going tick, tick, tick. They care about what the message is in this essay. So that's a pro tip that's quite different from the Common App. The other thing, and this advice would also apply to the Common Application essay, is use specific examples to provide evidence. So it's one thing to say, I'm a very resilient person. It's a lot different to say, and here are some examples that show that I'm a resilient person. We always say try to show, not tell. And that can be done through specific examples. One of the other things about these PIQs is you probably know when you're completing your UC application, you should know which of the schools you're applying to, but you can't say specifically, at UC Irvine, I'm looking forward to taking the classes in or participating in or enhancing my writing skills, whatever it is. There's no reference to individual schools in these essays, and that's different from the supplemental essays that you'll see at other colleges. When you go to complete the Common Application, you have your first Common App essay, and then you have supplemental essays assigned to the other schools, or that the other schools assigned to you is a better way to put it. And they want to know specifically, what do you know about our school? What are you interested in? Why are you interested in it? And that's not a component of the UC application. So good news, bad news, I don't know. Just news. Some things that the UC does not require that a lot of people don't realize is test scores. They are test blind. And that does not mean test optional. Doesn't mean, oh, decide whether to send your score. It means don't send your score. In very rare instances, they may ask for some testing. That's typically around proof of English fluency, that type of thing, or an academic system where they can't really evaluate you as well as they want to be able to evaluate you. So they may ask later in the process for your test scores, but it's very rare. And all the years I've been doing this, I've had hundreds and hundreds of kids apply to the UCs, and maybe 3 got asked for their additional for test scores down the line. They don't want, oh, look at my numbering system, does not work very well here, so got to change that. They don't want letters of recommendation. They won't read them, don't send them. It's not necessary, and it's not helpful. That's one of the things about the college planning process that I think is very important, is follow the instructions. If they say they don't want something, they don't want it. It is important to follow the instructions. We can let you know, if we're working with you individually, how you might be able to enhance your application, not through a letter of recommendation, but in other ways, because there are other strategies for enhancing your application that come outside, that fall within the rules, and we can help with that. They do not require or conduct interviews. They don't want additional information like a resume. Some other schools will accept resumes, and they don't want a transcript. So the you have to enter all of your courses and grades. And then later, if you are attending the school, then of course you have to produce proof of your courses and grades and send a high school transcript. But initially, it's you're doing the data entry, and that is one of the things that's kind of tricky about the UC system, particularly if you don't attend a high school in California, because it's not self-evident. It's the A to G system. It's there's just some confusing things about it. I guess that's the easiest way to say it. But we can help clarify that. Um, you probably have seen, depending on where you are in the college application process, entering in your courses and grades is not a completely unique thing. There are other schools that require it. Most of them don't, but the UCs do, and you do it through their application. All right, so those are the 5 things, despite my numbering system, that the UC does not require. Okay, so final takeaways. In terms of all of this information, which I know is a little bit like drinking through a water hose, right? The things to take away are, one is apply broadly within the UC system. It does cost $80 per application, so and that's for each school that you apply to, so it's not inexpensive, but you want to make sure that you're strategic so that you have options. Understand each campus's selectivity and their strengths. Also, I would add to that, specifically what the majors are there and what your likelihood of being able to major in something at a particular school is. Pick backup strategies, align with your interests, and that's something we can really tell you more about and help with. Use the UC admissions data to help target your choices and craft a compelling, authentic application. So one of the words I used earlier was your narrative. What at this point, particularly if you're a younger student in high school, or parents if you have a younger student, that's something to start thinking of now, which is frankly super challenging to say, okay, you 14-year-old, give me your narrative. Let's start building your narrative. But it really is also something that's very helpful for young people to figure out who they are and what they want to do, and how and what activities they can participate in, what courses they can take to help build that path, really, and tell that story. So those are the final takeaways with regard to this particular presentation. So next steps, take rigorous courses and earn A's. Yep, that's one of them. Start building your activities and your honors early. Don't wait to be great. Be great early. It's important. Get feedback from mentors and teachers. Research and narrow your school list and majors by visiting campuses virtually or in person. I cannot tell you how important that is, and how I would say significantly fewer than 50% of families do it. I have no idea why. It's a big expense to to go to college, and it's a big commitment. So to me, it certainly makes sense. And you are webinar people because you're here. So I'm going to trust that you will be in the percent of families that do attend virtual information sessions or go on campus visits. It's really just very helpful and important. Some schools do track that demonstrated interest. The UCs are not among them. And but it's still important to do for you, not necessarily for them. And then certainly seek expert help in the admissions process. If if it's in your budget to hire an independent counselor, it certainly is a a helpful, meaningful, and efficient thing to do. It also helps parents not have to interact with their children quite as much around these things because we're doing it instead. But we do approach it as a family endeavor. We work together, we share everything with the parents as well. So we want to include the parents. We just want to make sure that we're taking care of the expert advice, and again, making sure you know what to worry about and what not to worry about. All right. Now, if you aren't currently an ICC family, we want you to become one, of course. And the first step in that would be to schedule a free consultation with me or with someone else. If you email me, I will certainly be able to ascertain based on your two-paragraph email what you're interested in for your child and match you with the best person in our company, which may be me, maybe someone else. We have a great client relations team as well that really helps with that. And we have experts in all different areas. And please keep in mind, this goes from middle school to if you're applying to college this year. We are still able to help you with that. So we have price points from all different variety of price points. And if you're thinking about potentially transferring colleges or attending grad school, those are also great times to utilize an independent counselor. So my information is here. I'm happy to respond to you if you email me. And at this point, we do have a couple of minutes if there are questions that I might be able to answer. Amy, do you have, are you able to see any questions in the Q&A?
Yes. Okay. We have a couple. So someone asked, under what circumstances will the UCs ask for your test scores?
The times that I have had it happen were based on an twice was an international student and once was an athlete, a recruited athlete. So those are the only circumstances that I'm aware of. Or the other one might be if you have an uncertain academic record and I mean uncertain just because you have some, unique circumstance, they may want additional data from you. But it's again very rare. Great question.
Next one. Does UC make admissions decisions solely based on grades earned in 10th and 11th grades? Can you confirm their use of the weighted GPA that favors AP and or honors courses with their 5.0, 4.0, or for A's and B's respectively? Okay, so it looks like two questions together.
Sure. So the UC system, when they're computing the GPA, they compute it for 10th, 11th, and 12th. So that is news, might be good news, might not be good news. They also they don't add honors weighting for students outside of California. They do add AP weighting for students outside of California. And within California, the weighting is dependent on your high school not to some extent, to all extent. So all of the high schools have to enter in their curriculum, and then the UCs have it in a system and determine what the weighting will be. So that if you go to school in California, that's something to talk to your school counselor about specifically if you have questions. Outside of California, it's really, take the most rigorous classes available to you, AP or IB, or dual enrollment. One of the things that's very important within the UCs is if you do dual enrollment, they are going to want to see that college transcript. So don't do dual enrollment unless you are going to start your college grades positively. Sometimes I know, particularly in Florida, it's a very popular dual enrollment school, but if you get B's in those courses, which isn't a bad grade, but it starts your GPA in college at a 3.0, which is sometimes hard to get out of. So I had one of my sons took two dual enrollment courses and got a B and a C and started his college with a 2.5, which was much worse than his high school career. So it was hard to climb out of. Um, did I answer? I think I answered all of the
Wait,
aspects
here's,
of that question.
oh, okay, perfect. Oh, here's one about us. So what do you and your organization specialize in regards to the admissions process?
I would say the thing that we really, couple of things. One, we really specialize in individualization and personalization. So we're a very tight-knit team, even though we're located around the country. We meet at a minimum of 3 times a week as a full team, and we talk about trends. We talk about the latest things that are happening in the news. We talk about students and we present students to each other and we share strategies and expertise. So that's one of the reasons I actually chose to work with ICC is because of the team and recognizing that we all have areas where we excel and areas where we may have gaps in knowledge. If I have a gap in knowledge, I know in who my teammate is who will have be able to answer those questions. So I really think that that is what differentiates ICC, the team approach and the very significant personalization. So you would be working with one counselor, but you would have the support of the entire team.
Great. How many more you want to take? There's a couple more questions.
Let's
Let's
do
keep
two
going.
more. Yeah, two
Okay.
more.
Could you, I'm gonna take one off the chat. Could you comment on submitting, oh, by the way, if we don't get to your question, please send it to Deborah and she'll answer it.
Thank you,
Okay,
Amy. Yeah.
just, yeah. Could you comment on submitting AP test scores to the UCs? My understanding is that they will accept them and it can provide further proof of competency in certain subjects given grade inflation.
Yes. So that there is a place on the application to enter your AP test scores. You don't submit them, you don't necessarily send them when you apply, but you can enter them. And yes, the if you have fours and fives, definitely I would say add them to your application. And if you have ones and twos, don't. Threes, kind of one of those, let's discuss and put it within the context of the student.
Okay. And for everyone whose questions we don't get to, remember, send it to Deborah. Here's another one. This one's kind of, I guess would be a short one. Does having a parent or grandparent with a UC school as an alma mater help?
Alma mater. Yeah, right.
Alma mater
Right.
help. My brain skipped a beat.
No, only in that it will help you with your familiarity with the school, and that helps you present your more genuine voice in your application. But again, remember, you're applying to, I mean, very few students only apply to one school. You might, but even so, they really don't want you to target your application to a particular school. So,
Okay.
but being a California resident does help. They do have to have, accept a certain number of students from California. So that is a benefit. And a lot of times, if your parents went to one of the schools, you might still live here. I don't know. So I work with students in California. I work with students in different countries and on the East Coast and the northern states. We don't, each of us doesn't work with a huge number of students in each grade because we want to be able to provide that individualization as well. So I would say that, might be the only reason is if a counselor could certainly get full if they don't have any more space because they're working with a certain number of students. We do really try to be mindful of making sure that you have all the time we need. I also want to give a shout out to Amy because Amy is our essay specialist and she's here helping with the webinar, which we really appreciate. She also writes our blogs, which can be very helpful to you. When we have situations, like if I have a student struggling in telling their story. Amy will meet with them, depending on the package that you purchase. The comprehensive package has no additional charge for that. We also do interview prep, which there's no additional charge for with the comprehensive package. That's not relevant at the UCs, but just a little plug. All helpful things. So I'm going to wish you very good luck with this process. I hope to hear from you if you have questions or would like to meet for a consultation and learn more about our services. And gosh, enjoy the rest of the summer. Isn't it going by much too fast? Whew. Enjoy it, stay safe, and thank you so much for joining us today. Bye now.